Hi, I'm Maggie. You're either watching me on Maggie and Psychic World Facebook page or YouTube playlist Maggie and Psychic World. And I'd appreciate anyone who is interested in paranormal, psychic, um, the evidence of afterlife, and my paranormal investigations to like and subscribe to my lists and my page, and you will keep seeing these videos. This video is, I had to move to my porch because the wind was kicking up and it was blowing me all over the place. And it's December 2021 right now, and I'm in Northwest Arkansas. The temperatures have dropped here, so we're having some nice days and some cool days, getting ready to approach winter. We're just still in fall, so I'm on the porch right now. This video is about my experience with the James Randi Educational Foundation and my evidence of afterlife. I have 4 consecutive years of incoming calls by my mom after she passed away in December 2006, and I have videos of that in my playlist that you can see on. And I have AT&T 4 years incoming calls from her disconnected number to a cell phone that she never knew that I got my first cell phone after she died. And that's all on a video, so that's not the topic here. This topic is my experience with the James Randi Educational Foundation. For anybody who doesn't know, they were promoting themselves as debunking the fakers, the fake psychics and the fortune tellers, and they support the idea of science and evolution, and that there's no God and there's no afterlife and there's no nothing to make any of these possibles. And they would sell tickets, and they would choose psychics and people who had claims of paranormal activity, and they would say that they were debunking them, and they would collect an audience of same interests, science and evolution. So they had a clientele, and they had followers, and they would stage themselves and make money by this. Well, they apparently made an offer to public, and it was called the $1 million challenge, to anybody who could prove that they exist, to download their application and send their evidence in and have it notarized. This contest is over now. It ended in 2015. I entered it in 2013. I was told about it by being on the White House wall when our former president, Barack Obama, was president. In 2012, I was on the White House wall socializing, and someone happened to look at my Facebook page, and they saw that I had also a psychic page, and they saw my evidence of afterlife, and came back and told me to go collect my money. And I said, well, what money? What money are you talking about? And he said, the James Randi Educational Foundation, go look. And so I went and I looked, and I pulled down their lists of things that they're doing, and I saw the challenge that they had, the $1 million challenge, and to download their application, have it notarized, send your evidence in, and they would review it. Well, after a year of not hearing from them, and them avoiding my phone calls and emails, I mean, they just were avoiding me, and time was going by, and I knew that I had to do something, because I knew I had evidence and on paper, and I could file it in court. And I also knew that there's a statute of limitations. And I looked up all this stuff and found out that I was still valid to file a complaint. My first complaint had an error on it, and I filed it in the Supreme Court of Los Angeles at the Stanley Mosk Courthouse. And I had an error on it because one of the lines asked, name the person you are suing, and not an entity. It should have said, name an entity you are suing, or you are taking to court, you're filing against, as a human being, not a group or a thing or a business or a foundation or a faculty. And the Beverly Hills deputies wanted a name of a person on this complaint sheet that they could serve, and they'd have to match the summons. There has to be the name, and it has to be a person's name. And so they were coaching me wrong, and I put James Randi and agent of service Stephen Black, and it was an error because of the way the complaint from the courthouse is typed. It says name person, not entity. It should say name entity you are to sue. And if it did say entity, then I would have put the James Randi Educational Foundation, which I did the second time I took him to court. I took him to court twice because the first complaint was an error and I had already amended it once. And I had a date for for them to appear with the first appointment, and they didn't want me to make that appointment. They derailed the first one, and they had no laws to support them because I could have amended that complaint and repaired it with the correct, the James Randi Educational Foundation. They derailed it, saying that I was suing the persons, not the faculty, not the company. And they took me to federal court, but I hadn't entered any legal codes or anything yet. I hadn't gotten that far yet. We were supposed to have a beginner's meeting to start off with, and it was going to be just less than a month away. And they didn't want that. They didn't want me to fix it. They didn't want me to correct it. So they derailed it and took me to federal court, and then the federal court attorney just dismissed it because there was no legal codes to support it, and it wasn't meant to be a personal suit. And so when that happened, I filed again. I filed twice. Only the second complaint, I didn't make the same error. I put where it says name the persons or that you're suing, I put the James Randi Educational Foundation. And there was no errors on that complaint. And when I was trying to correct the first one with the error on it, in federal court, they were telling me that I had 10 days to do that, and I had already been pulled away from state court, so I couldn't do it when that way, and I got confused, and I made the papers from the federal court as a complaint naming the James Randi Educational Foundation, and I used the same court number. I used the same file number, the case number that the James Randi had entered. I used the same number, not a different one, and I didn't leave it blank. Well, when my thinking I'm correcting it got to the clerk's office, she crossed out that case number that I put in that matched where we were, the same case number, thinking I'm correcting it, and put a new case number in there, which she violated her duties. She should have taken that and sent it back to me as a reject and said that their cause was there's already a case with this case number and parties named. You cannot enter another one, and she should have sent it back to me. But she gave it another case number, and I wasn't going to pay for it, you know, and I had a filing fee waiver, thinking that my filing fee waiver was going to cover it because it's the same case number I put on there, and because she changed the case number, my filing fee waiver didn't cover it. And when the second one I entered was correct, the James Randi Educational Foundation agent and their attorneys decided to say I filed 3 and used that clerk's error as a fraudulent accusation. And I had put the codes with the violations that she did by doing that as not substantial validation for their claims that I filed 3, and they just ignored it. I filed 2, and they wanted to say that I filed 3 and I violated court rules, and that I was malicious and coming and attack them and all this stuff, and was just making me out to be a bad guy. And the judge in the Stanley Mosk Courthouse made and to top it off, the second time that I filed without the errors or anything on there, they didn't reply to the summons served. They didn't. It was 40 days before they responded, and the agent of service, Stephen Black, appeared for a meeting that we had, and the judge told Stephen Black that he is not named as a sued party. Stephen Black tried to make it look like the first errored one as a personal sue, and the judge said, no, that's not named on here. It's the James Randi Educational Foundation. You're not named as a party to sue. And he filed a motion, and the court allowed it, and he is not even a party to suit. And the courts really messed up bad in that case. He had no jurisdiction to file any motions. He wasn't named as a party to suit, and he wasn't attorney in the case, a named attorney. And he put a name of attorney in as representing him and motions in, and he had no validation to do that. And I had told the courts, and even the judge said you shouldn't have done that, and to not let it happen, told the clerks to not let it happen, and they did it anyway. And then their attorney that they got, Mr. Martin, after 40 days responding to the summons without an excuse or a reason why to excuse himself, put in a motion to demur to dismiss, as me filing 3, copied everything that Stephen Black entered, saying that I filed 3 cases against them and made up false accusations with court law, with authorities of prior cases that have been held with the same accusations that were supporting them. And I was collecting all my legal codes and everything to file while this is going on, and I put my attachments and everything in there, and I wanted to support my case with the correct legal codes for breach of contract and against their false accusations, because there wasn't three cases that I filed, there was only 2. And so his motion was filed 40 days after summons served, and then he didn't even appear on his motion day. I was there, and the judge on the first hearing, where the case management meeting, the judge told me I could file default against them because they didn't appear, and I did. I filed default, and then they made the late motion out of jurisdiction, and the courts were siding with them, and then they didn't appear for their motion, and I'm saying to the judge, they're in default again. This is the second time. They're not showing up. This is default. I said it orally. And the judge was excusing them without any cause. There was never a reason on their part of why they were ignoring the court both times. And the judge was covering for them and said, no, we're going to reschedule it, we're going to reschedule it. But I did, and then I put in my objections to it, and I put all the legal codes to support me of their violating the courts and the court rules and the laws, and I put all that in there, and it's all filed in the Stanley Mosk Courthouse that I did the responses that I was supposed to. And then they appeared for their second date motion to demur dismiss against me. And the judge made the day before a preliminary itinerary, and I think it was 13 pages. And one of the pages had his personal reason why they did not want the evidence of afterlife in court, why he didn't want it in there. And I have that page posted in Maggie Ann's Psychic World in Facebook. And it basically was saying that the court would turn into a circus because everybody would want their First Amendment, and there's been bloodshed about religion and the evidence of God, and got into religion, and got into saying that the evidence of afterlife would bring about the evidence of God, and how bloodshed has been on religion over these topics, and the courthouse would turn into Saturday Night Live, and he didn't feel that evidence of afterlife should be in a courthouse. And so he was letting me know that no matter what I did and no matter what due process was, I was not going to have it. I was not going to have it no matter what. I fought them all the way from state court to court appeals to California Supreme Court, where there, after I did everything by paper filing on the California State Court, I read up on how to do the electric filing, and I filed it electric also. And when I did, the clerk was really upset with me. There was a man there. I think he took some of my papers and changed the wording or altered my entry of file, because there's no reason for him to call my home, which he did. He called my home and got upset and told me, why did you do electric filing? You already filed by paper. And I had that right to. The court, California Supreme Court, allows the public to file electrically. And he got really upset, and I says, that's for attorneys. And I says, no, public and citizens can do that too. And they can do it in state court also. And he got irate with me. He got mad at me. He was really upset that I did electric filing. So I think he tampered with my sheets. And he said, did you do it just like you filed? I said, yes, I did. I just did the same sheets that I submitted in the mail, the same exact things. And he giggled because I think he tampered, and that's why he called me. There's no reason he should have called me, because there was no error. I gave the correct coding for those entries and everything. I did my research on it. And then it got rejected, and so then I got it into Washington, D.C. Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, Washington, D.C. And that court, they just said they weren't going to review it. My contori, they just said they weren't going to look at it. They just said, you know, they choose who they're going to address and who they're going to which case they're going to look at, and they just weren't going to look at mine. So none of them got looked at. Mine didn't get looked at, but my evidence of afterlife is in U.S. Supreme Court, and anyone can see it under my name. Margaret Morris-Calderon versus the James Randi Educational Foundation. and it's in the U.S. Supreme Court. So I had over 100 pages, 10 copies for each judge, and the original and a big box that I had sent. So I had everything, and there was so much underhanded dealing with the courts. My files in state court, my files weren't being delivered by mail. They were being intercepted in the sorting room in Garden Grove. And on my Facebook page, where it says Supreme Court, yeah, Superior Court of Los Angeles, the Stanley Mosk Courthouse, they work with the sorting room. That little green certified mail on my court file documents that I needed to submit, they would hold it in the sorting room and keep my papers from being delivered. It got so bad, I dealt with this over 5 years with this court, with 2 cases that they were holding my legal documents back, and I had proved it in my certified mail slips that I have in my Facebook under the Supreme Court, pictures of it, and I made official complaints all the way to DC for 5 years. It got so bad I went through UPS, and then it got to be to where I had to go to FedEx just to get my papers ready for my appeal, because they weren't going to deliver my legal documents in state court. They were holding them. They were tampering with my legal rights to due process. They were obstruction to justice, and I went through. You have no idea how much stress and trauma that I had to go through. I was not being allowed to talk to the clerks. I was told that I had to talk to the Stanley Mosk chief executive administrator of the courthouse only, and he wanted everything in writing, and he would only address what he wanted to. I had to meet criteria of time being delivered with these documents, and after the motion to dismiss was made and the judge made his preliminary judgment, the defendant would not send me a copy, and he was supposed to send me a copy because it was his motion. He was supposed to send me a copy of what the judge gave him. He would not, and I had to respond to what the judge said, and I wasn't being shown what that was. I had to just figure it out and use the law and my knowledge of what had been going on, because I wasn't being allowed to see it. And the courthouse also hid a thick motion of from the defendant that was not in my view. I couldn't see it filed. I would have had to pay to see that motion filed. It wasn't in view like all of the other motions and documents the defendant had filed. The court intentionally hid over 100 pages in a part of their motion of where their exhibits were, and things were being hidden from me that I had no access to. I had to respond to the defendant in 5 days. I stood up for 3 days getting my papers ready, and I had to go to the library to make copies for everything. I don't have an office, so I had to do everything at the library in Fayetteville. And I was, with everything being hidden from me, I did make my response in time, and I certified mailed to the attorney, Martin, for the James Randi educational their copy, and the delivery man, mailman in Sacramento, delivered that to Mr. Martin without getting a signature, and because it was time sensitive, without getting a signature. So I had to deal with the postal masters in Sacramento to make that man go back and get a signature because it was time sensitive. I had spent hours on the phones with postmasters. The Los Angeles postmaster would not respond to me at all. He would not take my calls, and the Garden Grove was holding my documents back, and they would not address anything from me as a complaint. And they were all happening at the same, being delivered to the courthouse, nobody else. I went through so much hell of obstruction with my evidence of Afterlife. No one has any idea. The trauma that it put on me and the stress, it took me over a year to recover. I had to deal with this for 5 years. People have no idea. And in the meantime, my environment, people around me where I live, were turning on me. I had a false arrest for reporting neighbors for animal abuse that I have a video in my YouTube of, and my Facebook page has a copy of it in the Sheriff's Department photo album I made. That I had to deal with, and I had the DHS. I'm a disability person, and they weren't going to let me have my SNAP food benefits, and they weren't going to let me eat. And I'm dealing with all these documents I'm having to do to get this done. I turn out to be the only American in U.S. who's had to file in county court the DHS of an appeal, of an administrative appeal for SNAP benefits as a disability person, no changes in my life, and living alone. No earned income, and I was being violated. My receipts of medical expenses to being applied to my SNAP benefits, and I'm the only one that had to go to court for that in U.S. I had to do all these by myself. I wasn't getting any help from anyone, and it put me in a very stressful trauma place that I was watching the sun come up for over a year. I couldn't go to sleep at night. I put on some weight after this. It's just, I'm in recovery now. So it took me a long time to make this video, because it was such trauma to deal with evidence of the afterlife. People have no idea. They want it hidden. U.S. wants it hidden. America wants it hidden. They don't want public to know. And I had to fight tooth and nail to get it to the U.S. Supreme Court. I got it there. They won't look at it, but it's there. My evidence is in U.S. Supreme Court. When I die, I know it's in a safe place. I mean, God is my witness, and that's what matters. And He was with me through all of it. And it was a trauma situation that I don't think if anybody has that challenge should do it, in my opinion, because the courts are not going to listen to you. I have evidence on paper. I have everything. There's nobody that James Randi had several attorneys, more than 3. I have been through over a dozen judges. I had filed twice. Out of everything I went through, not one person could debunk my evidence. Not one person has been able to disprove my evidence of afterlife. Everything I've been through, from 2007 when it started to date. We're in 2021. Not one person has debunked or disproven my evidence of afterlife. And it is in a safe place. And that's what I wanted. I was so worried about it. I thought if I put it in a safe box, what if I die? Who's going to get it? I wasn't looking to go this avenue. It was introduced to me. I wasn't searching. My Facebook page isn't for money. It's a diary, documentary. I haven't been able to profit on any of this, because if I did, people would ridicule me really bad. It's okay for a doctor to get paid. It's okay for a teacher to get paid. It's okay for other professionals to get paid. But for psychics, for some reason, well, they won't. They think it's wrong. People think it's wrong. So I've done things as a courtesy just to help people, and I am always available for anybody who's experiencing paranormal or is afraid or anything that I could share to help. That's what I'm doing. And I finally got this video out. I'm happy. So I'm done.